Dae-hyun stared at the flickering fuel gauge and cursed under his breath. 3%. Maybe enough to reach the next station, maybe not. His ship, the Wandering Star, groaned around him like an old man complaining about his joints. The hull had more patches than original metal at this point. He was broke. Worse than broke. The debt collectors had already taken his cargo hauler, his apartment back on Earth, and even his father's old watch. All he had left was this dying ship and a reputation for taking jobs nobody else wanted. The distress beacon appeared on his scanner like a gift from the universe. Old signal, probably abandoned. Dae-hyun pulled up the coordinates and felt his stomach drop. Veltran space. The Velthrans were one of those alien species that thought humans were cute but useless, like pets that learned to talk. But desperate times called for stupid decisions. The research station floated in the dark like a massive metal tombstone. No lights, no power signatures, no life signs. Perfect for salvage. Dae-hyun guided his ship to the docking port, feeling the magnetic clamps shake as they connected. The sound echoed through his empty cargo bay. He grabbed his toolkit and breathing mask, then stopped. Something felt wrong. The station was too clean, too intact. Most abandoned places showed signs of looting or damage. This one looked like everyone just vanished one day. The airlock hissed open. Dae-hyun stepped inside and immediately noticed the gravity was still working. That meant power somewhere. His hand moved to the plasma cutter on his belt. The corridor stretched ahead in perfect symmetry. Veltrans loved their order and perfection. Every wall was smooth, every corner exact. Emergency lights cast everything in a cold blue glow. His footsteps echoed too loudly. Dae-hyun followed the main corridor deeper into the station. He passed empty laboratories, dormitories with beds still made, a cafeteria with food long rotted to dust. Whatever happened here, it happened fast. The central chamber doors were massive, at least 20 feet tall. They stood half open as if inviting him inside. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. But fuel cost money, and money meant surviving another week. He squeezed through the gap. The chamber was circular with a domed ceiling that showed the stars above through transparent panels. In the center stood a black pillar, maybe 12 feet tall, made of some kind of polished stone that seemed to drink in light. And bound to it was a girl. Dae-hyun stopped breathing for a moment. She hung suspended by bands of glowing energy that wrapped around her wrists and ankles. Her head drooped forward, long dark hair hiding her face. She wore a simple white garment that looked more like a medical gown than clothes. He approached slowly, checking for traps or security systems. Nothing activated. The girl didn't move. For a terrible moment he thought she might be dead. Then she lifted her head. Her eyes were large and dark, set in a face that looked almost human but not quite. The proportions were slightly off, the features too perfect like a statue. Her skin had a faint lavender tint. Veltran, definitely. Above her head, a holographic sign flickered to life, displaying text in multiple languages. Dae-hyun read the human translation. Take as you wish. Punishment for refusing genetic compliance. The girl stared at him with exhausted, terrified eyes. Please, she whispered in accented but clear human speech. Please don't, I cannot endure another. Whoa, hold on. Dae-hyun raised his hands. I'm not here to take anything. Well, except salvage. What the hell is going on? She blinked, confused. You are human. Last time I checked, yeah. Humans do not come to Velthron facilities. Her voice was weak, like she hadn't used it in a long time. Why are you here? Broke and desperate. Saw a distress beacon. He walked around the pillar, examining the energy restraints. They pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. How long have you been here? I do not know. Months, perhaps. Time becomes difficult. And this sign, what does it mean? The girl's expression hardened despite her weakness. It means I refuse to breed with a government official. In my culture, genetics determine everything. Who you marry, what job you hold, where you live. All decided by genetic matching. I was matched to a high official named Timon. I refused him. So they tied you to a post? Dae-hyun felt anger rising in his chest. What kind of punishment is that? Anyone can claim me now.
Take me as property.
It removes me from Velthron society while still using my genetics. She watched him carefully. Most species understand the system. They claim ownership through the panel there, then take me to wherever they wish. Are you not going to do the same? Hell no. Dae-hyun pulled out his toolkit and approached the restraints. I'm getting you out of here. You cannot. The restraints only release when someone claims ownership through biosignature. Watch me. For the next hour, Dae-hyun worked on the energy bands. They were designed to be unbreakable through force but relied on a central power node. He traced the energy flow back to a panel in the pillar's base. The girl who told him her name was Hana watched in amazement as he bypassed the biosignature requirement completely. You are just ignoring the system, she said. System's stupid. I don't follow stupid rules. He cut through the final connection and the energy bands flickered out. Hana collapsed forward. Dae-hyun caught her before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing. Her arms were thin, muscles wasted from months of immobility. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Why would you help me? Humans are considered a minor species. We have nothing you need. Because leaving someone tied to a post is wrong. Don't need a better reason than that. Red light suddenly flooded the chamber. An alarm shrieked to life. A mechanical voice spoke in Velthron, then switched to human language. Unauthorized property removal detected. Security protocol activated. Can you walk? Dae-hyun asked. I do not think so. Then hold on. He lifted her, slinging her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. She weighed barely more than his toolkit. Panels in the walls slid open. Small combat drones emerged, their weapons charging with an electric whine. Dae-hyun ran. The corridors that seemed peaceful before became a maze of death. Drones fired energy bolts that scorched the walls. Dae-hyun dodged and weaved, his lungs burning. Hana clung to him, too weak to do more than hold on. He skidded around a corner and came face to face with 3 drones. No time to think. He grabbed a damaged panel from the wall and threw it like a frisbee. It hit the lead drone and they all collided in a tangle of metal and sparks. Your species is insane, Hana gasped. Gets the job done. They reached the docking port just as a blast door began closing. Dae-hyun dove through with Hana, rolling as they hit the floor of his ship. The door sealed behind them with a final clang. He scrambled to the cockpit and slammed the release. The wandering star detached and he fired the engines, pushing them away from the station. Behind them, explosions bloomed as the station's self-destruct activated. Dae-hyun collapsed into his pilot seat, breathing hard. Hana lay on the floor of the cockpit, staring at the ceiling. You saved me, she said quietly. Yeah, well, now we're both in trouble. He checked his scanner. Velthron ships were already responding to the station's alert. Better strap in. This is gonna get rough. Hana had never felt pain like this before. Her muscles screamed as blood flow returned to limbs that had hung motionless for months. She lay on a medical cot in the tiny cabin of the wandering star, watching the human called Dae-hyun work at a control panel. He moved with quick efficiency, his hands dancing over buttons and switches. Sweat dripped down his face. A burn mark crossed his left arm where a drone's energy blast had grazed him. He ignored it completely. How bad is the damage? She asked, forcing the words through cracked lips. We've got maybe 4 hours of life support. Engines are at 60% and half the hull sensors are fried. He glanced back at her. Could be worse. How could it be worse? We could be dead. He grinned and Hana realized he was actually enjoying this. She struggled to sit up. Her body refused to cooperate. I do not understand you. You risk your life for a stranger. Your ship is damaged. The Velthron fleet will hunt you. Why did you not leave me? Dae-hyun stopped working. He turned to face her, his expression serious. Back on Earth, I had a sister. When I was 14, she got sick. Really sick. The medical companies said treatment cost too much for people like us. Said we should accept reality. He looked at his hands. I spent 3 years working every job I could find. Stole when I had to. Finally got enough money. By then it was too late. I am sorry. Point is, I learned something. Reality is just what someone decided should happen, and I don't like being told what I should accept. He smiled again, but this time it was different. Harder. So when I see someone tied to a post with a sign saying take her, my response is to cut her free. Simple as that. Before Hana could respond, the ship's computer spoke. Warning. Velthron cruiser detected. Range, 50,000 kilometers. Dae-hyun swore and ran to the cockpit. Hana forced herself to crawl after him, dragging her useless legs. She reached the doorway and pulled herself up to see. On the display screen, a massive Velthron warship appeared. It was shaped like a blade, all sharp edges and cold perfection. The communication light blinked. Don't answer it, Hana said. wasn't planning to. But the ship opened the channel anyway, broadcasting directly into the cockpit. A Veltron male appeared on screen. He was tall and perfect with features that advertising companies would kill for. Hana's stomach twisted. She knew that face. Taemin, she whispered. Hana. His voice was smooth, controlled. You have caused considerable trouble, and you, human, have stolen property of the Veltron state. Return her immediately and your death will be quick. How about no? Daehyun said. Taemin's perfect face showed the first crack of emotion. Anger. You are a salvager in a broken ship. I command a military cruiser. This is not negotiable. Everything's negotiable. Daehyun killed the communication channel. Hold on to something. The wandering star suddenly dove downward, engines screaming. The cruiser fired, energy beams cutting through the space where they had been moments before. Daehyun spun the ship in a corkscrew pattern, heading toward a nearby asteroid field. You cannot hide in there, Hana said. Veltron sensors will track us easily. Not hiding, improvising. He pushed the ship into the asteroid field, flying between rocks the size of mountains. The cruiser followed but had to slow down. Something that big could not maneuver as quickly. Daehyun grabbed what looked like a mining charge from a storage compartment. Can you use your legs yet? Barely. Good enough. Take the controls. Keep us moving through the asteroids. Don't fly straight, don't be predictable. I have never piloted a human ship. It's like riding a bike. What is a bike? Just push the stick where you want to go and pray. He headed toward the airlock. Hana dragged herself into the pilot seat. The controls were strange, designed for human hands, but the basic principles were the same. She pushed the control stick and the ship lurched sideways, barely avoiding a collision. Behind them, the cruiser fired again. The blast hit an asteroid, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. Debris pinged off the wandering star's hull. Through the small window, Hana saw Daehyun in a spacewalk suit, climbing onto the hull. He was carrying the mining charge. The human was completely insane. He moved across the ship's surface until he reached one of the damaged sensor arrays. He attached the mining charge and kicked off, floating back toward the airlock. The cruiser fired again, missing him by meters. Okay, now fly straight at that big asteroid, the one that looks like a potato. His voice crackled through the speaker. This will kill us. Trust me. Hana did not trust him, but she also did not have better options. She aimed the ship at the asteroid and increased speed. The rock grew larger in the viewport, filling the entire screen. Now pull up hard, she yanked the controls. The ship screamed in protest, pulling up at the last second, scraping its belly against the asteroid's surface. Sparks flew. Alarms shrieked. The cruiser following behind pulled up too, but not before Daehyun triggered the mining charge. The damaged sensor array on the wandering star exploded, releasing a cloud of metal fragments and electromagnetic interference. The cruiser flew directly into it. Its sensors went blind. It struck the asteroid hard, tearing a gash in its perfect hull. Emergency lights flickered across its surface. Go, go, go! Daehyun was back inside, stripping off the spacewalk suit. Hana pushed the engines to maximum. The ship shook violently but moved forward, leaving the crippled cruiser behind. They flew for 3 hours before Daehyun finally slowed down. Hana's hands were shaking on the controls. She had never experienced combat before. Veltron solved disputes through legal channels and genetic superiority, not violence. That was terrifying, she said. That was fun. Daehyun was checking the damage reports. Okay, not great news. We burned through most of our fuel in that run. Need to land somewhere and make repairs. Where? Got a human colony about 2 days from here. New Daegu. It's small, but they don't ask too many questions. Hana looked at him. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead she had not noticed before. His clothes were torn. He looked exhausted. But he was smiling. Why are you smiling? Because we're alive? Because we got away? Because that perfect Veltron warship got taken down by a mining charge and some garbage? He laughed. Because humans don't quit, ever. Hana felt something strange in her chest. Not pain this time, but something else. Something warm. On her world, everyone followed the rules. Everyone accepted their genetic place. No one questioned the system. This human questioned everything. Daehyun, she said quietly, when we reach your colony, they will know I am Veltron. They may not welcome me. Then I'll tell them what I saw. Someone who refused to be property. Someone who would rather be punished than give up her freedom. He met her eyes. That's someone worth fighting for. Hana felt tears forming. In all her life, no one had ever said anything like that to her. Your species is very strange, she said. Yeah, we get that a lot. They flew in comfortable silence for a while. Hana watched the stars pass by through the viewport. She thought about Tai Min and the other officials. They would not stop hunting her. They could not allow this kind of defiance. But looking at Dae-hyun, sleeping in his chair with his hand still on the controls, Hana felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. Maybe humans were a minor species by galactic standards. Maybe they had weaker technology and smaller ships. But they had something else. Something her people had lost in their pursuit of genetic perfection. They had the ability to look at impossible situations and say no anyway. She reached over and pulled a blanket over Dae-hyun. He mumbled something in his sleep but did not wake. The ship flew on through the darkness, carrying two fugitives toward an uncertain future. But for the first time in a very long time, Hana was not afraid. The wandering star limped through space like a wounded animal. Warning lights blinked across every console. The engine made a grinding sound that made Dae-hyun wince every time he heard it. How much further? Hana asked from the co-pilot seat. She was stronger now after 2 days of rest and the emergency rations Dae-hyun had shared. Her legs still shook when she walked, but she could move on her own. 6 hours, maybe 8 if the engines keep protesting. He tapped a display showing their fuel reserves. We'll make it, barely. The communication system suddenly lit up with an incoming message. Not from ahead, but from behind. Dae-hyun checked the scanner and his blood went cold. We've got company. 5 ships, different signatures. Not Velthran military. Mercenaries, Hana said, her voice tight. Taemin must have posted a bounty. How much are you worth? Enough to buy a small moon. Wonderful. Dae-hyun pushed the engines harder. They responded with an alarming shriek. The mercenary ships were faster. They closed the distance quickly, fanning out to surround the wandering star. One opened a communication channel. The face that appeared was not human or Velthran. It had 4 eyes and skin like cracked stone. Human vessel, surrender the Velthran female and we will allow you to live. Refuse and we will take her from your wreckage. Dae-hyun killed the channel without answering. What are you doing? Hana asked. Thinking. He studied the scanner, looking at the space around them. They were approaching a quarantine zone, marked clearly on all star charts. A plasma storm, unstable and deadly, that had been sealed off for decades. You cannot be serious, Hana said, reading his mind. It's either that or get caught. That storm has a 99% fatality rate. No one has ever flown through it and survived. So we'll be the first. Dae-hyun aimed the ship directly at the swirling clouds of purple and red energy, or the second dead attempt. Either way, better than giving up. The mercenary ships followed for a moment, then peeled off as the wandering star entered the storm's outer edge. They held position at the boundary, waiting. They clearly expected the ship to be destroyed within minutes. The moment they entered the storm, everything went wrong. The ship bucked like a wild horse. Lightning arced across the viewport. Gravity fluctuated wildly, slamming them against their restraints 1 second, and lifting them from their seats the next. Hull. Integrity at 70%. The computer announced calmly. Dae-hyun gripped the Mei controls with white knuckles. His eyes darted between displays, reading energy patterns, predicting where the next plasma burst would occur. He flew on instinct, dodging left when logic said go right, diving when sensors said climb. How are you doing this? Hana shouted over the alarms. I have no idea. A massive plasma tendril reached for them like a hand. Dae-hyun rolled the ship sideways, the energy passing so close it scorched the hull. Another tendril appeared from above. He dove beneath it, then immediately climbed to avoid a gravitational well that would have crushed them. Hull integrity at 40%. Hana watched the human pilot with wide eyes. By every calculation, they should be dead. The storm was chaos, unpredictable, impossible to navigate. Yet Dae-hyun was doing it. Not through superior technology or careful planning, but through pure reactive instinct. A Velthran pilot would have plotted the safest course, calculated the best trajectory. They would have died because the storm did not follow rules. But this human did not plan. He just reacted faster than thought, trusting his gut. There! Hana pointed at the scanner. A clear zone appeared ahead, a pocket of calm in the storm's heart. If we can reach that, we might survive long enough to cross to the other side. Dae-hyun nodded and pushed forward. A plasma wave rolled toward them like an ocean breaker. Instead of avoiding it, he accelerated directly into it, riding its edge like a surfer. The ship spun wildly but shot forward, carried by the wave's momentum. They burst into the calm zone. For a moment, everything was still. Silent. The storm raged around them in a perfect sphere. But inside this pocket, there was peace. Hull integrity at 18%. "We can't stay here," Daehyun said. "Storm will collapse this pocket eventually. We need to keep moving." "The other side is worse than what we came through," Hana said, checking the readings. "Of course it is." He laughed, a sound that bordered on hysteria. Why would anything be easy? They rested for 5 minutes, long enough for the ship's systems to cool down. Hana spent the time watching Daehyun. His hands were steady now, his breathing controlled. He was not afraid. Or if he was, he refused to show it. "On my world," she said quietly, "we would have calculated this was impossible. We would have surrendered to the mercenaries rather than attempt something with a 99% failure rate." "And that's why you'll never beat us," Daehyun said. He was not being cruel, just stating a fact. "Humans are really good at doing impossible things. It's kind of our whole deal." He fired the engines. They shot toward the far side of the storm. This time was worse. The plasma was thicker, the gravity wells stronger. The ship's hull groaned with every impact. Panels tore loose. A window cracked. The engines started losing power. "Come on," Daehyun whispered to the ship. "Just a little further. You can do this." Hana realized he was talking to the ship like it was alive, like it could hear him and respond. It was irrational, illogical. But somehow the ship held together. They burst out of the far side of the storm. Open space stretched ahead, clear and calm. Behind them, the storm churned, keeping the mercenaries at bay. Hull integrity at 3%. "We need to land. Now." Daehyun checked the scanner. "There, that moon. It has an atmosphere, barely, but enough." The ship's descent was not graceful. They hit the moon's surface hard, bouncing twice before skidding to a stop in a cloud of dust. Alarms screamed. Fires started in the engine room. Daehyun grabbed an extinguisher and ran to put them out while Hana worked the emergency systems. When everything finally stopped, they sat in silence. The ship was dying. They could hear it in the creaking metal, the failing systems. "We need to send a distress signal to New Daegu," Daehyun said. "Hope they can send a ship before the mercenaries figure out we survived." Hana nodded. She was shaking, the adrenaline finally wearing off. They had just done something impossible. They had flown through a storm that killed everyone who tried. "Why do you do it?" she asked. "Do what?" "Risk everything. You could have surrendered me. Saved yourself." The logical choice was to give up. Daehyun looked at her with tired eyes. "I spent my whole life watching people accept what they were told. Accept poverty. Accept injustice. Accept that some people matter and others don't." He stood up, stretching his sore muscles. "I got real tired of accepting things. So now I don't. Simple as that." He moved to the communication panel and started sending the distress signal. Hana watched him work. Her people valued genetic perfection, logical thinking, calculated risks. They had built a civilization on those principles, but this human, with his broken ship and stubborn refusal to quit, had just accomplished something no Velthron would have attempted. Maybe, she thought, there was more to intelligence than genetics and logic. Maybe there was something in the human spirit that her people had lost, something wild and unpredictable and impossibly brave. The distress signal went out. Now they could only wait and hope. Outside the cracked viewport, Hana could see the storm still raging in the distance. They had passed through the impossible. The mercenaries would assume them dead. They had bought time. "Daehyun," she said. "Thank you." For not accepting things, he smiled. "Don't thank me yet. We're still broke, stranded, and hunted. This is just the beginning. I know. But at least we are alive to face it." They sat together in the dying ship, watching the stars above, waiting for rescue or death, whichever came first. But they were not afraid. Not anymore. Because they had learned something in that storm. Sometimes the impossible just means no one has been stubborn enough to try. The rescue ship from New Daegu arrived 30 hours after the distress signal. By then, Hana had learned 17 new human curse words from listening to Daehyun try to repair the Wandering Star's failing life support. The colony's ship was small and battered, not much better than Daehyun's own vessel. The pilot was a woman named Ji-woo who took one look at the damaged ship and whistled low. "You flew through the Carrick storm?" she asked, helping them transfer supplies. "Seemed like a good idea at the time," Daehyun said. Ji-woo laughed. You're crazier than I thought. Come on, let's get you home before those mercenaries figure out you're still breathing. New Daegu was not what Hana expected. She had seen images of human colonies before, all gleaming towers and organized streets. This was different. The settlement sprawled across a valley like someone had thrown buildings at random. Nothing matched. Some structures were metal prefabs, others carved from local stone. Still others built from salvaged ship parts. It looked chaotic, messy. But as they landed, Hana saw people working together in the streets, children playing, gardens growing between buildings. There was life here. Real, unplanned, organic life. Your colony is very disorganized, she said to Jiwoo. Yeah, we like it that way. The woman grinned. On Velthra, everything probably looks perfect, right? All straight lines and proper planning? Yes, efficiency is important to my people. Well, us humans are allergic to efficiency. We prefer making things work through sheer stubbornness. Jiwoo landed the ship near what looked like a maintenance yard. Come on, let's introduce you to everyone. Fair warning, they're gonna have questions. Word spread fast in the small colony. By the time Hana and Daehyun reached the central square, a crowd had gathered. They stared at Hana with open curiosity. She felt exposed, vulnerable. On Velthra, aliens were kept at arm's length, processed through proper channels. Here they just gathered around and looked. An old man pushed through the crowd. His hair was white, his face weathered like old leather. He looked Hana up and down, then turned to Daehyun. You brought a Velthran to our colony? His voice was harsh. Hana's heart sank. This was the rejection she expected. Yeah, Kyung-ho. Got a problem with that? Daehyun stepped forward, placing himself between Hana and the old man. Kyung-ho stared at him for a long moment. Then he smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. Nah, just wanted to hear you say it with confidence. Anyone you vouch for is welcome here. He turned to Hana and extended his hand. Welcome to New Daegu. Sorry about the mess. We're still building. Hana stared at the offered hand, then slowly took it. His grip was firm, calloused from work. I do not understand. I am Velthran. Your people and mine are not allies. Maybe not up in government space, Kyung-ho said. But down here we're all just folks trying to survive. You look like you've had a rough time. Come on, let's get you some real food. That emergency ration garbage will kill you faster than mercenaries. The crowd dispersed, but Hana noticed they kept glancing back at her, not with hostility but with open interest. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, approached shyly. Is it true you can calculate math in your head really fast? She asked. Yes. Velthrans are genetically designed for enhanced cognitive function. That's so cool. I'm Youngmi. I fix ships. Want to see my workshop? Before Hana could answer, the girl grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a building made entirely from salvaged hull plating. Inside was chaos. Tools everywhere, parts scattered across workbenches, half-finished projects piled in corners. This is where I work, Youngmi said proudly. I know it looks messy, but I know where everything is, mostly. Sometimes. Hana walked through the workshop, fascinated. There was no organization, no system, yet she could see the girl was talented. A modified engine sat on one bench, its design actually improving on the original manufacturer's specs. You did this yourself? She asked. Yeah, Dad says I have a gift. I just like making things work better. Youngmi pulled out a small device. This is a scanner I'm building. It's supposed to detect plasma storms before you get too close. Think it might help people like Daehyun who do crazy stuff. It is a good design. But your power coupling here, it will overheat. If you move it here instead and add a secondary heatsink, it will run more efficiently. Youngmi's eyes went wide. That's brilliant. Can you show me? They spent the next hour working together. Hana found herself relaxing. On Velthra, her work was always monitored, judged, ranked according to genetic potential. Here this human child just wanted to learn and create. Jiwoo found them eventually. There you are. Come on, Kyung-ho is making dinner for everyone. Fair warning, he cooks like he's trying to kill people, but it tastes amazing. The colony had a central dining hall that was already packed with people. Long tables filled the space, families sitting together, conversations overlapping in a pleasant chaos. Hana felt overwhelmed by the noise and energy. Daehyun appeared at her elbow. You okay? It is very loud. Yeah, humans are like that. We don't do quiet very well. He guided her to a table where Kyung-ho was setting down enormous plates of food. This is stew. You eat it with bread. Don't ask what's in it, just trust me. The food was nothing like Velthran nutrition paste. It was hot and spicy and full of flavors Hana had never experienced. Her eyes watered from the heat, but she kept eating. So, Kyung-ho said, sitting across from them, "Word is there's a bounty on you." "Big one." Hana stopped eating. "Yes, I am sorry. I should not have come here. I am putting everyone in danger." "Oh, we're always in danger," Jiwoo said, sitting down with her own plate. "Pirates, claim jumpers, corporate raiders. What's a few mercenaries added to the list?" "You do not understand. The bounty is enormous. Professional hunters will come. Let them come." Kyung-ho's voice was calm but hard as stone. This colony was built by people who got pushed out of everywhere else. Misfits, failures, folks who didn't fit in the perfect systems. We look after our own. I am not one of your own. We just met. You're here. Daehyun vouched for you. That's enough. He pointed his spoon at her. Besides, any girl who tells the Velthran government to go to hell and would rather be tied to a post than give in, that's someone worth protecting. Tears formed in Hana's eyes. On Velthra, community was based on genetic compatibility. Your place was determined by your DNA. The idea of strangers simply choosing to protect her was foreign. "Why?" she whispered. "Because it's the right thing to do," Jiwoo said simply. "Humans are big on that, doing the right thing even when it's stupid. Especially when it's stupid," Daehyun added with a grin. That night, Hana was given a small room in Jiwoo's building. It was simple, just a bed and a desk, but it was hers. No one watching her. No one judging her genetic value. Just space to be herself. She lay in bed listening to the sounds of the colony outside. Voices talking, someone playing music, children laughing. It was so different from the quiet, ordered nights on Velthra. A knock on her door. Jiwoo entered with a bundle of clothes. "Thought you might want something better than that medical gown."
"These should fit."
"They're my daughter's, but she's off-world studying." "You have a daughter?" "Yeah. Raised her alone after my husband died. Mining accident 5 years back." Jiwoo sat on the edge of the bed. "Look, I know you're scared. I know this is all strange, but you're safe here. We don't abandon family. I am not your family. Not by blood, no. But humans have this concept called chosen family. People you pick to be part of your life. It's actually stronger than blood sometimes because it's a choice." She stood up. "Get some rest. Tomorrow young Mai wants you to help in the workshop. Girl hasn't stopped talking about you since you showed her that heatsink trick." After Jiwoo left, Hana changed into the new clothes. They smelled like laundry soap and sunlight. She looked at herself in the small mirror and barely recognized the person looking back. For the first time in her life, she was not defined by her genetics or her status. She was just Hana, just a person, and maybe she thought that was enough. The warning came 3 days later. A smuggler ship landed at New Daegu carrying information. The captain, a scarred woman with cybernetic eyes, found Daehyun in Kyung-ho's garden. "Thought you should know," she said, accepting a cup of tea from the old man. "There's talk all over the sector. The bounty on your Velthran friend just doubled, and Taemin himself is offering a personal reward on top of that." "How much?" Daehyun asked. The smuggler told him. Kyung-ho whistled low. "That's enough to buy a fleet," the old man said. "Or retire in luxury for 10 lifetimes," the smuggler agreed. "Every mercenary within 100 light years is heading this way. You've got maybe 3 days before they arrive." She stood up. "I like you people, but I'm not sticking around for the fight. Good luck." After she left, Daehyun and Kyung-ho sat in silence. The garden was peaceful, vegetables growing in neat rows despite the messy colony around it. Kyung-ho had explained once that he needed one thing in his life to be orderly. "We should leave," Daehyun said finally. "Take Hana and run. No point in everyone dying for us." "Where would you go? They'll track you anywhere." Kyung-ho pulled a weed from between his tomatoes. "Besides, colony already voted. We're staying. All of us." "That's insane. You have children here. Families. Which is exactly why we're staying. What kind of example would we set if we threw out someone who needed help the moment things got dangerous?" The old man stood up, his knees cracking. "Come on. We need to call a meeting. If we're doing this, we're doing it smart." The entire colony gathered in the central hall that evening. 234 people from old Kyung-ho down to the smallest children. Hana stood beside Daehyun, feeling sick with guilt. "This is my fault," she whispered. "I should leave." "Too late for that," Jiwoo said from her other side. "We're committed now." Kyung-ho stood on a makeshift stage. "All right, everyone knows the situation. We've got 3 days before a mercenary force arrives. They're coming for Hana. The smart thing would be to hand her over and avoid the fight." Hana's heart sank. Of course, they would not really risk everything for her. "But we're not smart," Kyung-ho continued. "We're human, which means we're going to stand and fight. Anyone have objections?" Silence. Then a voice from the back. "Let them come. I'm tired of running from bullies." Others joined in. Agreement rippled through the crowd. Not because they wanted to fight, but because they had all been pushed around before. This colony was built by refugees, failures, people with nowhere else to go. They understood what Hana was facing. "All right then," Kyung-ho said. "Let's figure out how 200 civilians fight off professional mercenaries." The next 3 days were chaos. Young Mi and Hana worked non-stop in the workshop, building weapons from salvaged parts. Plasma cutters became improvised cannons. Mining explosives were turned into mines. The colony's few vehicles were armored with whatever metal they could find. Jiwoo organized defense teams. She had military experience from her youth and used it now, turning farmers and salvagers into soldiers. They practiced in the valley, learning to move together, to communicate, to not panic under fire. Dae-hyun worked with Kyung-ho on strategy. The colony was built in a valley with only 3 approaches. They could bottleneck the attackers, use the terrain to their advantage. It was not much, but it was something. On the 3rd morning, the ships arrived. 6 vessels, each carrying mercenaries from different species. They landed outside the valley, close enough to threaten but far enough to be safe. Or so they thought. A communication came through on the colony's main channel. The face that appeared was reptilian, covered in green scales. "Human settlement. We are here for the Velthron female. Surrender her and we will leave peacefully. Refuse and we will take her by force." Dae-hyun stood before the camera. Behind him, the entire colony stood in the square, visible proof they were united. "You want her?" he said. "Come get her." He cut the transmission. The attack began an hour later. Mercenaries advanced on foot, professional soldiers with expensive weapons. They expected quick victory. They had weapons and armor. The colonists had farming tools and desperation. The first wave hit the valley's eastern approach. They walked into Young Mi's minefield. Explosions ripped through their ranks. The survivors scattered, taking cover behind rocks. Then Jiwoo's teams opened fire from elevated positions. The crossfire was devastating. Mercenaries fell, their armor unable to protect against attacks from multiple angles. But they were professionals. They adapted quickly, calling in support from their ships. Heavy weapons began pounding the colony's positions. Hana worked in a makeshift medical station, treating the wounded as they came in. Burns, broken bones, plasma wounds. She used her Velthron medical knowledge combined with human medicine. The mix saved lives. "We need more hands here," she called out. Young Mi appeared, her clothes covered in ash. "South approach is falling. They're bringing in heavy armor." Dae-hyun was already moving. "Jiwoo, take half your team south. Kyung-ho, we need to trigger the trap." The old man nodded and ran toward the geothermal plant at the valley's edge. The colony was built there because of the natural heat source. Now they were going to weaponize it. The mercenaries pushed forward, confident in their armored vehicles. They rolled through the colony streets, weapons firing. Buildings exploded. The colony's defenders fell back, appearing to retreat in panic. The mercenary commander, watching from orbit, smiled. Victory was close. Then Kyung-ho triggered the plant. The valley shook. The ground beneath 3 mercenary vehicles split open. Superheated steam erupted from the cracks, engulfing the armor in heat that melted metal. Screams cut short. The vehicles collapsed into the newly formed crevasse. The other mercenaries hesitated. This was supposed to be easy. Helpless colonists, not a prepared defense. "They're faltering," Jiwoo said, watching through a scope. "Push them now." The colonists surged forward. Not with superior weapons or tactics, but with pure ferocious determination. They fought with makeshift weapons, with tools, with their bare hands when necessary. They fought like people who had nothing left to lose. A mercenary ship tried to provide air support. Young Mi's improvised cannons tore into it, ripping holes in the hull. It crashed into the valley wall, exploding in a fireball. The battle raged for 6 hours. Every colonist fought. Even the children helped, running supplies, treating wounded, keeping communication lines open. The colony bled, but it did not break. Finally, the mercenaries retreated. Half their force was dead or wounded. Their ships were damaged. The bounty was not worth this cost. As the last ship lifted off, the colonists collapsed where they stood, exhausted, bloodied, but alive. Hana walked through the ruins of the colony, seeing the destruction her presence had caused. Buildings were destroyed. Fires still burned. 14 colonists had died. 23 more were seriously wounded. She found Dae-hyun sitting on rubble, bandaging a wound on his leg. "I am so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "All this death because of me." "Not because of you," Ji-woo said, appearing beside them. She had a cut across her forehead but was smiling. "Because we chose to stand. Big difference." "But why? Why would you sacrifice so much?" Kyung-ho joined them, moving slowly. He had taken a plasma hit to his shoulder but refused treatment until everyone else was helped. "Because 50 years ago, I was you," he said quietly. "I was running from a government that wanted me dead for refusing military service. A small colony took me in, protected me when hunters came. Half those people died defending me." He looked at the ruins around them. "I swore I would do the same for someone else when I got the chance. Today, I kept that promise." "We all have stories like that," Ji-woo said. "Every person here was helped by someone when they needed it most. Now it's our turn to help." Hana looked around at the colonists. They were battered, exhausted, grieving their dead. But they were not defeated. They were already starting to clean up, to rebuild, to care for each other. "Humans are terrifying," she said softly. "Yeah," Dae-hyun agreed with a tired grin. "We really are." That night they held a service for the dead. 14 names read aloud, 14 lives given to protect a stranger. Hana listened to each name, memorizing them, carrying the weight of their sacrifice. But she also saw something else. She saw a community that refused to break, that chose principles over safety, that looked at impossible odds and said no anyway. This was humanity's true strength, she realized, not weapons or technology, but the stubborn, foolish, beautiful refusal to abandon those who needed help. And watching the colonists mourn their dead while already planning to rebuild, Hana understood something profound. She had found something her genetically perfect society had lost. She had found people worth fighting for, and who thought she was worth fighting for too. News of New Dagu's stand spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. A human colony had defeated professional mercenaries. The story grew with each telling. Some versions made it sound like hundreds of soldiers. Others claimed advanced weapons. The truth was simpler and somehow more impressive. 200 civilians with farming tools and stubbornness. In the Terran Council chambers on Earth, officials watched the reports with growing concern. Ambassador Chen stood before the council, his expression grave. "The Veltron government is demanding we hand over the refugee Hana immediately. They are threatening trade sanctions and military action if we refuse." "And if we comply?" Council Chair Morrison asked. "We betray our principles. We tell the galaxy that human lives matter more than alien lives, that we only protect our own." Chen pulled up images of New Dagu's destroyed buildings. "These people already made their choice. 14 died defending her. Are we going to make that sacrifice meaningless?" The council chamber erupted in argument. Half wanted to avoid conflict. The other half refused to surrender someone seeking asylum. Hours passed with no resolution. Meanwhile, Hana made a decision of her own. She sat in Young Mi's workshop, the young engineer working on repairs while Hana prepared. Dae-hyun found her recording a message. "What are you doing?" he asked, ending this. She looked at him with determined eyes. I have evidence of the genetic corruption. Documents, records, proof of what the officials did. I have been too afraid to release it. But no more. They'll kill you, perhaps. But they will not be able to hurt anyone else. She finished the recording and set it to broadcast on every major galactic channel. If I am going to cause this much trouble, I might as well make it worthwhile. The broadcast went out an hour later. Hana's face appeared on screens across the galaxy. She spoke calmly, methodically, presenting evidence of systematic genetic manipulation by Velthran officials. She showed how Taemin and others had rigged breeding programs for political power, creating genetic weaknesses that would take generations to fix. She named names, showed messages, provided data that could not be faked. The effect was immediate and devastating. On Velthra, protests erupted in the lower genetic castes. People who had been told their inferior genetics were natural now learned they were intentional. Designed to keep certain families in power, riots broke out in major cities. The Veltron Council scrambled to respond, but the evidence was overwhelming. High officials were arrested by their own security forces. Taemin himself was taken into custody, his perfect face twisted with rage as he was led away. The political structure that had existed for centuries began to crack. In the Terran Council, the debate ended abruptly. With Velthran leadership in chaos, there was no one to make threats. More importantly, Hana's broadcast had made her a galactic figure. Handing her over now would look like betraying a whistleblower. The vote was unanimous. Hana was granted official asylum in human space. But the story did not end there. Other species took notice. The Tariks, a civilization of traders, sent a delegation to New Daegu. They wanted to understand how humans had won. The leader, a tall being with crystalline skin, met with Kyung-ho in the rebuilt colony hall. "We have studied your tactics," the Tarik said. "Your weapons were inferior. Your training minimal. By all logic, you should have lost." "But we didn't," Kyung-ho said simply. "Why? What advantage did you have?" "We had something to protect." The old man gestured around at the colony. "These people are my family, not by blood, but by choice. You cannot calculate that in your tactical assessments." The Tariks left confused but thoughtful. Their report back to their homeworld sparked intense debate. Some dismissed human emotion as a weakness. Others wondered if they had overlooked something important. More aliens began arriving at New Daegu, not to fight, but to seek refuge. A scientist fleeing political persecution on her world, a family running from a genetic culling program, individuals who heard about the colony that protected a stranger and hoped for the same protection. The colony grew. New buildings rose from the ruins. The population doubled, then tripled. It became a symbol throughout the galaxy, a place where anyone could find sanctuary, but not everyone was happy about it. In a dark council chamber on a distant world, military leaders met in secret. They represented various species, all concerned about humanity's growing influence. "They are disrupting the natural order," one said. "Their emotional decisions create chaos. They inspire others to question authority, to rebel." Another leader pulled up data showing protests spreading across multiple worlds, all citing New Daegu as inspiration. "This must be stopped." "How?" "Open war with humanity would be costly. Then we use other methods. Economic pressure. Political isolation. We make them understand there are consequences for their actions." Plans were set in motion. Trade routes to human space began closing. Diplomatic channels went silent. A quiet blockade formed, not military but economic and social. On New Daegu, Hana watched these developments with growing worry. She stood on a hill overlooking the rebuilt colony, Daehyun beside her. "I have made things worse," she said. "Now humans are being punished because of me." "We're being punished for refusing to play by their rules," Daehyun corrected. "Big difference. And honestly, I think we were heading for this anyway. Humans don't fit well in ordered systems. What will you do?" "What we always do, adapt, find new routes. Make our own rules," he smiled. "You've seen how stubborn we are." "A trade blockade? That's Tuesday for us." Jiwoo climbed the hill to join them. "Got news from Earth. The Terran Council is forming a new initiative, offering asylum to any alien seeking freedom from oppressive systems. They are calling it the open door policy." "They are really committing to this," Hana said. "Of course. You showed us the alternative. You could have stayed silent, accepted your punishment, followed the rules. Instead, you risked everything to expose corruption." Jiwoo put a hand on Hana's shoulder. Humans respect that. You remind us why we fight. Down in the colony, lights were coming on as evening fell. The mixture of human and alien architecture created something unique. Not orderly like Velthran cities or wild like pure human settlements. Something new. Something that worked because people chose to make it work. Young Mai ran up the hill out of breath. Hana, come quick. The communication array is picking up a signal. It's from Velthra. They rushed to the communication center. A face appeared on the screen. Female Velthran with features that reminded Hana of home. My name is Mirai, the woman said. I am a geneticist in the lower castes. Your broadcast inspired us. We are forming a reform movement. The old power structure is crumbling. We wanted to thank you. More faces appeared on the screen. Dozens of Velthrans, all from lower genetic castes, all speaking of change, of questioning the old ways, of building something better. We are learning from humans. Miri continued. That rigid order is not the only way. That choice can be stronger than genetics. You were right to run, right to refuse. Thank you for showing us the truth. After the call ended, Hana sat in silence. She had expected to be hunted forever. Expected to live in hiding. Instead, her act of defiance had sparked a revolution. I did not mean to change anything, she said quietly. Nobody ever does, Kyung-ho said, appearing in the doorway. Change happens when someone finally says no. You said no. Others heard it. Now they're saying it too. But the blockade, the isolation, humans are suffering because I spoke out. Humans were always going to clash with the ordered species, Daehyun said. We're too messy, too emotional, too unpredictable. This just accelerated things. He grinned. Besides, we're good at being the underdogs. It's our natural state. That night the colony held a celebration, not just for survival, but for the changes rippling across the galaxy. Refugees from 6 different species joined humans in the square. They shared food, told stories, made music that blended instruments no one had ever combined before. Hana stood at the edge of the celebration watching. A human child and a Velthran child played together, their genetic differences meaning nothing to them. An elderly Terex showed Youngmi a new engineering technique. Jiwoo argued politics with a Brecken philosopher, both enjoying the debate. This was what her people had lost. What they traded for genetic perfection and rigid order. The beautiful chaos of different minds working together not because they were matched, but because they chose to. Daehyun found her in the crowd. You okay? I am thinking about my world. About what we gave up for perfection. Want to go back someday? Try to change it from the inside? Hana considered this. Perhaps. When the time is right. But for now I belong here. She smiled at him. With my chosen family. Even though we're messy and chaotic and constantly causing problems. Especially because of that. They rejoined the celebration. 2 refugees who had found home in the last place anyone expected. Above them, stars shone down on a colony that should not have survived but did anyway, because that was what humans did. They looked at impossible situations and made them possible through sheer stubborn refusal to quit. And now the galaxy was learning what that really meant. 5 years changed everything and nothing at all. Daehyun guided his new ship through the asteroid field with practiced ease. The vessel was called Second Chance, a name suggested by Hana and approved by his crew. It was bigger than the Wandering Star had been, better equipped, but he still flew it like he was dodging plasma storms. His crew was mixed species now. A Terex navigator named Silex who could calculate jump coordinates faster than any computer. A young Velthran engineer who had fled the genetic reforms and learned human-style improvisation. 2 human salvagers from New Daegu who wanted to see the galaxy. They specialized in rescue operations now, finding lost ships, retrieving stranded crews, saving people from situations everyone else called impossible. The pay was not great, but Daehyun did not need wealth. He had something better, purpose. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal, Silex announced. Small transport caught in a gravity well near the binary star system. How bad? They have maybe 2 hours before their hull collapses. And everyone else would take 4 hours minimum to reach them, the Velthran engineer added. Daehyun smiled. So it's impossible? His crew grinned back. They knew that word meant nothing to humans. Let's go prove impossible wrong again. New Daegu had transformed beyond recognition. The small colony of 200 had grown into a thriving city of over 10,000. Aliens from dozens of species lived alongside humans in a chaotic mixture of cultures and architectures. The colony had been officially recognized as a sanctuary world by the Terran Council. Any being fleeing oppression could claim asylum there. It had become famous across the galaxy, a symbol of something new. Hana walked through the medical center she had built. It was massive now, 5 stories tall, equipped with technology from multiple civilizations. Her staff was mixed species, all learning from each other, creating new medical techniques that combined different approaches. Dr. Hana, a young intern, called. He was human, fresh from medical school on Earth. "We have a patient with Brecken physiology. I am not sure how to treat the compound fracture. Let me show you." She guided him through the procedure, explaining how Brecken bones healed differently than human bones. The intern learned quickly, asking good questions. After the surgery, Hana stood at her office window looking down at the city. A massive monument stood in the central square where the battle had occurred 5 years ago. The Pillar of Freedom, they called it. Carved from black stone, it resembled the pillar she had been bound to, but this one had chains breaking at its base. 14 names were carved into its surface, the colonists who died defending her. Hana visited it every week, placing flowers remembering their sacrifice. On Velthra, the reforms continued. The genetic caste system had not been completely eliminated, but it was changing. Lower castes now had rights. Marriages by choice were legal. The rigid hierarchy that defined Velthran society for centuries was slowly being dismantled. Mirai, the reformer who had first contacted Hana, now served on the Velthran Council. She sent regular updates about their progress. It was slow, frustrated by conservative opposition, but moving forward. Young Velthrans were traveling to human space to study. They learned concepts like chosen family and personal freedom. Some returned home to continue reforms. Others stayed, finding homes on worlds like New Daegu. But not all species welcomed the changes. In the ordered regions of the galaxy, the old powers watched human influence spread with growing alarm. Humanity had not conquered through military might or technological superiority. They had done something more dangerous. They had introduced ideas. Trade negotiations that used to be simple now involved discussions of worker rights. Genetic programs faced ethical questions. Rigid social structures were being questioned by their own lower classes. Everywhere humans went, they left behind the seeds of change. Some species adapted. The Terrans, always practical, began studying human psychology. They realized emotional bonds created loyalty that contracts never could. Their society slowly shifted, becoming less transactional and more personal. Others resisted. Military alliances formed among species that valued order and hierarchy. They did not declare war on humanity, but they worked to contain human influence, to limit their access to certain regions. The galaxy was dividing into 2 camps. Those willing to embrace change and those desperate to prevent it. Jiwoo had become the colony's unofficial leader. She had not wanted the position, but people kept coming to her with problems and she kept solving them. Eventually, they just started calling her governor and she stopped arguing. She stood on the landing platform watching ships come and go. New Daegu was a hub now, connecting dozens of worlds. Trade flowed through despite the blockades. Where there was a will, humans found a way. A familiar ship appeared on approach. The second chance. Jiwoo smiled. Daehyun was coming home. The ship landed and the crew disembarked. Behind them came the people they had rescued. A family of 4 from a species Jiwoo did not recognize, looking exhausted but grateful. Daehyun spotted Jiwoo and walked over. He looked older, more scars, but his eyes still had that stubborn gleam. "Saved another impossible case?" she asked. "Of course, anything worth doing should be impossible." He looked around at the city. "Place keeps growing. Can't stop people from seeking freedom. You started something 5 years ago. We all did." He gestured to the Pillar of Freedom. "Is Hana still at the medical center?" "Where else would she be? Woman works harder than anyone I know." They walked through the city together, catching up. Jiwoo told him about the new trade agreements, the growing population, the school they had just opened that taught methods from 12 different species. Daehyun shared stories of rescues, of people saved from situations everyone else had abandoned. At the medical center, they found Hana in her office, surrounded by students from various species. She was teaching a class on emergency medicine. using actual cases to illustrate her points. When she saw Dae-hyun, her face lit up. After the class ended, the three of them went to the memorial. It was evening and the city lights were coming on. The Pillar of Freedom stood illuminated against the darkening sky. "Feels like yesterday," Ji-woo said quietly. "Feels like a lifetime ago," Hana countered. She touched the names carved in stone. "I still think about them. About what they gave up for me." "They gave it up for an idea," Dae-hyun said. "That people should be free to choose their own path. You just happen to represent that idea. Do you think it was worth it? All the conflict, the division in the galaxy?" "The galaxy was already divided," Ji-woo said, "between those with power and those without. We just gave the powerless a voice. That was always going to cause conflict." A young Velthran girl approached them shyly. She was maybe 7 years old, born on New Daegu to refugee parents. "Excuse me, Dr. Hana. My teacher said you were tied to a pillar like this one. Is that true?" Hana knelt down to the girl's level. "Yes, it is true. Were you scared?" "Very scared. I thought no one would help me, that I would be there forever. But the humans saved you. One human saved me. Then many more protected me. They taught me that freedom is worth fighting for even when it is difficult." The girl looked at the memorial, then back at Hana. "My mom says I should never give up, even when things are hard, because humans never give up." "Your mother is very wise." The girl ran off to join her friends playing in the square. A mixed group of children, various species, all playing the same games. Their differences meant nothing to them. They were just children being children. "That's what we fought for," Ji-woo said, watching them, "so the next generation does not have to." They stood together as night fell completely. The city glowed around them, alive with voices and movement. Ships came and went overhead. The chaotic, beautiful sound of different lives intersecting. "I got a message from the Terran Council," Dae-hyun said. "They want me to speak at some ceremony. Something about being an inspiration. Will you go?" Hana asked. "Probably not. I am not good at speeches. Besides, I did not do anything special. Just refused to accept something wrong." "That is exactly why you are an inspiration," Ji-woo said. "You saw someone who needed help and helped them. No politics, no calculations, no debate about whether it was worth it. You just acted. Any decent person would have done the same, but they did not. You did." Hana took his hand. "You changed my life. You changed this colony. You changed the galaxy, whether you accept credit or not." An alarm suddenly blared from Dae-hyun's communicator. He checked it and sighed. "There's a ship trapped in a solar flare. Everyone says it is impossible to reach them in time. So naturally you're going to try," Ji-woo said with a smile. "Naturally." He stood up, stretching. "Want to come along, Hana? Could use a good medic. I have surgeries scheduled. Cancel them. When's the last time you did something impossible?" She thought about it, then smiled. "Give me 10 minutes to clear my schedule." As they walked back toward the landing platform, Ji-woo called after them. "Try not to die. I have enough names on that memorial already." They waved without looking back. Kyung-ho was waiting at the second chance with supplies. The old man moved slowly now. His war wounds from 5 years ago never fully healed, but his mind was sharp as ever. "Heard you were heading into a solar flare," he said. "Brought extra coolant and heat shields. Figured you would need them."